There's an old saying by the late, great Zig Ziglar that says, if you aim at nothing, you'll hit your target every time. Is this what you're doing in midlife? Hi, I'm Jenna with Later But Louder, and today we are on point four of the five things that could be holding you back in midlife. And if you've missed the previous ones, I'll link to them below. But a lot of women in midlife, like myself, tend to lose sight of what our targets even were, especially if you're in the situation I'm in where you've had a lot of life changes and you've had a lot of reinventions and midlife just kind of crept up behind you and it's almost like it snuck up behind you and goosed you. And it was something you weren't expecting. And it was a new identity shift that you've had to contend with. That's kind of the situation I found myself in. And I found that part of what caused me to lose sight of myself was that I had lost sight of the old goals, the old things that I wanted to do for my life. I had a life of, 20 years of being in a career, and I had lost sight of the creative side of me. Um, Now, part of it was circumstantial. Maybe you're kind of in a situation like I was in where it wasn't the designer life that I thought I was going to have. I have divorces and a single parenting and all that got in the way the last 20 years. And I won't say got in the way, but I loved being a parent, but life didn't turn out like I wanted it to. Life didn't turn out like I thought it would turn out. I'll put it like that. There's been a lot of great things that have happened, but there have been a lot of hardships as well. And part of it was just the hustle of raising kids on my own and working, and you're going from one thing to the next, and you don't really have time to focus on your own pursuits, which is great. When you're a single parent, you have to put your kids first and you have to keep food on the table. And so all these other things that are priorities may get in the way, like they did for me. But I always had that spark to try to still live out my creative pursuits. And so once the kids were grown, and I'm going to talk about this when this series is over, I'm going to talk a little bit about that experience of when my kids grew up and moved out and having kind of a reckoning about what midlife meant, because it was the first time it really hit me that I was there and life was changing. I had an empty nest and all that. Another story for another time. But I was a little lost during that period. And you may find yourself in the same situation. Maybe you didn't have kids who grew up and moved out. Maybe you have felt totally content in your career, but you can still hit midlife, especially after other things have happened that have caused you to have numerous challenges to reinventing your identity over and over and over again, with midlife becoming the biggest challenge you've faced and one that you were really ill-equipped to face. And in the process of all that, I think we as women tend to lose sight of what we really want in life. And that includes remembering to be in touch with those old dreams, those old desires that we had, those old things that were so important to us at the time. And then we look up and 10, 15, 20 years later, like, what happened to that dream anyway? It's almost like it got buried under just living life and all the pressures of the day to day, or it got shoved aside for others' dreams. Maybe they weren't even your dreams. Maybe they were somebody else's dreams that you pursued for a parent or a spouse or somebody to make them happy instead of making yourself happy, truly happy. And you told yourself this is what you wanted, but deep down you always wanted to be more and do more and do something different than what you're doing. And so in this step of my formula, that I'm not really going to go into the formula yet, but essential to kind of get in touch with all those things that are, I guess, like in your dream graveyard. And I will call it that. What do you need to pull out of your dream graveyard that is just like laying there dormant? It's not too late for it. It can still be revived. It can still be realized. Maybe not in the same way that you thought it was going to be when you were younger. When I was younger, I might have wanted to, I'm just throwing this out there, be a fighter pilot. That is not what I wanted to do, by the way, but I'm just using this example. Obviously, now in my mid 50s, it's a little late to realize that dream. Maybe not. I don't know. If there's any pilots out there, you can tell me. But I would think that it's really pushing it to become a fighter pilot at this age. And so it may not be the dream as you conceptualized it in your earlier years, is my point. But you can still have some version of that dream. Maybe if it's really your interest, you can pursue building a business around something having to do with that, an eBay business selling flight memorabilia. I don't know. I'm just like throwing something out there. If you've got a creative side and you want to like do something with that passion that kind of reignites your interest and lets you focus on it in a way that gives you fulfillment and satisfaction. So it may not be the exact dream that you had, but there's a way to still kind of reshape it and change it for now. And I'm not going to deny that sometimes as you're doing this, there's a grief process involved because you can't go back and say, well, I'm going to be a fighter pilot because time doesn't turn back. We have to just live in the now and we have to plan for the future. And so I would encourage you today to get out a sheet of paper and just write down what were all the things that you've lost sight of that you want for your future, that you want to focus on. I like to think in terms of not only, career goals or what you want for life, like what you want to do in life, necessarily hobbies and jobs and that kind of thing, but what do you want life to look like moving forward? What do you want the future to look like? And what will it take for you to get to that future? So, for instance, let's keep using the fighter pilot eBay store analogy. um, that's actually kind of a tangible goal, right? Somebody could run an eBay store well into their senior years, and it can be something that's exciting and brings in revenue. And you never know where you can go with something like that. Now, I tend to be business minded, so all of my goals have to do with that. But maybe it's just pursuing a hobby, right? But I'm going to continue with the analogy of the store because the eBay store, because you might have that. Okay, so you had the original goal to be a fighter pilot. Your new rendition of that goal is you're going to run an eBay store having to do with flight memorabilia. And you're realizing this is a little more reachable. This is more realistic for you at the point in life that you're at. However, you don't know a thing about eBay. You've just seen eBay stores and you don't really know the process of how you're going to sell and ship your merch and all that kind of stuff, how you're going to even acquire it. So that takes some learning, right? You have to learn, you have to go in places where people are doing what you want to be doing and learn from them, whether that includes going back to school, whether that includes taking a training course, following somebody on YouTube who's already doing it, learning, finding a mentor in some way, shape, or form. You're going to have some learning ahead to try to figure out exactly how to set up your shop, right? And how you're going to market, how you're going to get your audience, how you're going to do all that. But if you put the work in, it actually could be a very exciting venture that is something that serves you well into, this next phase of life of coming to terms with what am I going to do with my time, finding some kind of interest or passion in life, because I firmly believe that finding something you're passionate about and pursuing it is one of the best ways to have that fulfillment in midlife and beyond, is to always have goals in mind and be reaching them, to try to do the things that give you excitement just thinking about doing them and leave you with a sense of that hope that you can achieve. I mean, that's why I started this podcast and this YouTube station or channel. They are goals that I had to put this message together, to get it out there. Once I realized that other women may be struggling with the same kind of repeated midlife crisis that I went through. And in a future video, like I said, I'm going to be walking you through exactly what that was and how I found out the answer for me. And I will also say that I'm not totally there yet. So in my message, I hope to share, I'm sharing with you the answers that I found to this point, and hope to make it a collective of women where we walk together and we look further. And I can help you because I'm like maybe one step ahead of you. I don't have all the answers. I want us to figure them out together. So that is my dream and my goal for Later But Louder. That's what's given me purpose. That's what's given me hope. That's what's given me excitement about middle age, is thinking, hey, maybe I can help motivate women in realizing that midlife isn't the end and that we still have a lot to offer, and we can help identify and figure out those strengths together and make midlife more of a time of joy than it traditionally is seen as. But your goals are going to be a lot different. And so I want to know what they are. Let me know. If you're watching on YouTube, put in the comments, like, what are your goals for moving forward? And this has to do with looking at your previous dream graveyard and seeing, like, what is there, what can be revived, because there's something in there, a previous passion that you can take and mold into something for the future. And so that's one thing to keep in mind. And another is the path that you're on and the overall goal of what you want to want life to look like. And that includes, I would get out another sheet of paper for this. On one side, what does life look like now? And on the other side, what do you want life to look like? And that includes everything. Where do you live? What do you drive? Who's your support system? Who do you spend time with currently? How do you spend your time? What does this all look like right now? And then look at where things are headed and what you would like them to look like. And look at that list when you're done, of just throwing out everything you can about what you would like life to look like. And just kind of look at one to the other and see how big of a chasm there is. And think about what you need to do to cross that chasm. And start living life in a way that is going to make that desired life more of a reality. And again, just put steps in place to be able to get there. I know I'm making it sound a lot simpler than it is. So I don't want to throw too much at you at once. So let's just back up. Let's start with dreams that you had that you would like to resurrect. And We could even branch it out and just say not only career dreams, dreams for pursuing hobbies. Let's just say all categories, lifestyle dreams, dreams for how you would like to live your life. What are some dreams that you had when you were younger that you can edit, I guess, for current use moving forward? What is your revised version of that dream? And I don't expect you to know the steps to reach it just yet, but think in terms of what your old dreams were. And if you're stuck and you just think, "Oh, there is no way I can even visualize this dream from the past being able to be shaped into something that would give me fulfillment now." Also, let me know that and let's talk about it because that's a good topic if you're struggling with that. If my whole analogy of starting the eBay store and everything didn't hit, it might also be that it's not necessarily dreams from the past. After you look at dreams from the past, I want you to take that list of where you'd like the future to be headed. And when you think about moving forward and what you want life to look like moving forward, that can include things from the past, but it also might include totally new pursuits that you would have never had 20, 30 years ago. And that's totally all right too, because you've changed, you've grown, you've matured. And sometimes it's best to let go of some things that we thought about doing in the past that never came to fruition. There's a reason why they didn't. And so it's best to move on and put that dream to rest and leave it in the dream graveyard, so to speak. So be sure to put that too on your list if you have new dreams moving forward. And I'm mainly thinking in this sense of creative or fulfilling pursuits that you can achieve, goals that you want to reach. But like I said, also put another list of where you would like life to be headed versus where it is now. And those are some things that we can talk about. And we can talk about where you're stuck, where the challenges are. But always remember that saying that if you aim at nothing, you hit your target every time. And be thinking about what targets you'd like to hit now and moving forward.